Vekran had seen war before. His people, the Malthian, had fought in 3 major conflicts over the last 2 centuries. They understood tactics, strategy, and the careful calculation of acceptable losses. That was why the Concordat had sent him here, to observe these humans, these newcomers to the galactic stage who had somehow pushed back the Krell invasion that had consumed 6 other species. The transport ship dropped him at Forward Operating Base Hammer on Threshold 7, a contested mining world that changed hands every few weeks. The base was a mess of prefabricated structures, defensive walls made from shipping containers, and soldiers who looked nothing like the professional warriors Vekran had expected. A human met him at the landing pad. Daejung was his name, a commander who looked old by human standards, maybe 40 of their years. His face had lines around the eyes and mouth, and a scar ran from his left ear down to his collar. He wore the same dirty armor as everyone else. "Welcome to Hammer Observer," Daejung said, extending his hand in the human greeting. Vekran touched it carefully. "I'll be honest with you. This isn't a good time for tourists." "I am here to study your combat methods," Vekran replied. "The Concordat wishes to understand how humans fight." Daejung laughed. "It was a rough sound. While you're about to get a real education, the Krell are pushing hard on our eastern perimeter. We're launching a counterattack in 2 hours. 2 hours. Vekran's people would need 2 weeks to plan such an operation." He spent the time observing. The human soldiers moved with purpose, but also with something else, a lightness that seemed wrong for people preparing for battle. They joked with each other. They smiled. A young private named Taiwan was checking his rifle for the 3rd time, his hands shaking slightly. But the woman next to him, a medic called Hana, put a hand on his shoulder and said something that made him laugh. "First drop?" Hana asked Taiwan. "That obvious?" The young man replied. "You'll be fine. Just remember, stay behind Daejung. That old man is too mean to die." Vekran didn't understand. They were joking about death. About dying. His people would spend this time in meditation, preparing their minds for possible extinction. These humans were singing. Someone had started a song and others joined in. The words were crude. Something about blood and glory and going home in a bag. "They do this before every fight," a voice said beside him. Vekran turned to see a pilot. Her name tag read Yuri. She was eating something that smelled terrible. Nervous energy. Better to laugh than to think too hard about what's coming. "Your species is strange," Vekran said. Yuri grinned. "You have no idea. The dropships were ugly, functional things. No elegant curves like Malthian craft, just armored boxes with engines." Vekran strapped himself into a seat next to Daejung's squad. Taiwan sat across from him, no longer shaking. His face had gone calm, almost empty. The engines roared. The ship lifted. Through the small windows, Vekran could see 5 other dropships rising with them. 6 ships total. He had accessed the mission briefing. They were attacking a Krell fortification held by at least 300 enemy soldiers. The humans were sending 87. The numbers made no sense. 30 seconds. Yuri's voice crackled over the intercom. Then she started singing too. The soldiers joined in, their voices vibrating through the metal walls. Vekran felt it then, the first spike of real fear. His people had an instinct deep in their genes that made them freeze when death was near. It was a survival mechanism. Every civilized species had something similar. You stopped, you assessed, you found the safest path forward. The humans had no such instinct. The dropship hit atmosphere and the singing got louder. Weapons fire began hammering the hull. Krell anti-aircraft systems. Alarms shrieked. The ship bucked and twisted. Vekran's breathing stopped, his body locking up in that ancient freeze response. The humans leaned forward in their harnesses, eager. 10 seconds. "Give them hell!" Yuri shouted. The rear ramp dropped and wind screamed into the bay. Vekran could see the ground rushing up, see the Krell bunkers spitting fire at them. Every instinct told him to stay in the ship, to find cover, to wait for safety. Daejung was the first one out. He jumped before they'd even fully landed, his squad right behind him. They were running toward the guns, toward certain death, and they were screaming, war cries that were half rage and half joy. Vekran couldn't move. His body wouldn't let him. Hana grabbed his arm. "Come on, can't stay here." She pulled him down the ramp and his legs moved automatically. Muscle memory from training overrode instinct. He ran because she was running and humans always ran forward. The battle was chaos. The Krell were everywhere, large, armored, vicious. They had superior position and superior numbers. By every calculation Vecrin knew, the humans should have retreated after the first minute. They didn't retreat. They advanced. Daejung's squad moved like water, flowing around obstacles, covering each other with practiced ease. Taewon wasn't shaking anymore. He was calm, methodical, putting rounds exactly where they needed to go. When a Krell soldier charged him, the young private didn't freeze. He sidestepped, fired 3 times, and kept moving. Vecrin watched a human soldier take a hit that should have been fatal. The round punched through his shoulder. The man screamed, dropped to one knee, then stood back up and kept fighting with one arm. Hana reached him seconds later, injecting something, slapping a seal over the wound. The soldier waved her off. "Get Kyung sick, he's hit worse." Hit worse, as if there were acceptable levels of being shot. The battle lasted 43 minutes. The humans took the fortification. Vecrin, cowering behind a barricade, watched them plant their flag on the bunker roof while Krell bodies lay everywhere. He counted later, 12 humans dead, 10 more wounded badly enough that they'd been evacuated. The rest had injuries that his people would consider disabling. They were already joking again. That night, back at the base, Vecrin expected mourning. Silence. Reflection on the terrible cost. Instead, he found celebration. The surviving soldiers gathered in the mess hall. They told stories about the ones who died, funny stories, heroic stories, stupid stories. They laughed. They cried. They drank something alcoholic that smelled like fuel. Someone made a toast. To Park Gite, who said he'd never die in a dropship. Technically, he died after getting out of one, so he wins that bet. Everyone laughed. Everyone drank. Vecrin found Daejung outside, looking at the stars. The commander was smoking something that added more scars to his lungs. "Your people are insane," Vecrin said. Daejung nodded. "Probably. But we're still alive. 12 of your soldiers aren't." "No. 12 of my soldiers died doing what they chose to do, fighting for something bigger than themselves." Daejung took a long drag. "Your people freeze when death gets close, right? Survival instinct? Yes, it's logical. Maybe, but here's what I know, the Krell have that instinct too. Every species we've met has it. Except us." Daejung smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "We learned a long time ago that freezing gets you killed. So we evolved different. We run toward the danger. We embrace death like an old friend, and that scares the hell out of everyone else." Vecrin returned to his quarters and began his first report. His hands shook as he typed. Report Day 1. Human combat doctrine appears suicidal by concordate standards. Acceptable casualty rate is approximately 15% per engagement. They do not freeze. They do not retreat. They treat death as an acceptable transaction cost. Further observation required, but initial assessment is troubling. These humans are either the bravest species I have encountered, or they fundamentally do not value life the way civilized beings do. I cannot yet determine which is more frightening. Outside, he heard them singing again. Victory songs. Memorial songs. Songs about dying well. The stars above Threshold 7 seemed dimmer somehow, as if the universe itself was learning to fear what these humans might become. Vecrin spent his second week at Forward Operating Base Hammer in the medical ward. Daejung had suggested it. Said if he wanted to understand humans, he needed to see what they endured. The medical station was a converted cargo building that smelled like chemicals and blood. The chief surgeon was a woman named Bora who looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dark circles under her eyes, hands that never quite stopped shaking. She smoked cigarettes between operations, lighting each new one from the last. "You're the alien observer?" she asked when Vecrin introduced himself. She didn't wait for an answer. "Stay out of the way and don't touch anything. We've got 15 incoming from the northern sector." The wounded arrived on stretchers. Vecrin had seen injured soldiers before, but never like this. A Malthian warrior with these injuries would be sedated immediately, kept in medical stasis until proper treatment could be arranged. These humans were conscious, talking. Some were even joking. Hana was there, her uniform stained with dirt and blood. She moved between patients with quick efficiency. A soldier named Wanshik had taken shrapnel to his chest. The wounds were terrible. Hana cut away his armor while he gritted his teeth. "How's it look, Doc?" Wanshik asked. "You'll live. Might have some interesting scars for the ladies." Wanshik tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. Blood on his lips. "Good. I'm ugly enough already." Vekrin watched Bora operate on a soldier whose leg was barely attached. The anesthesia supplies were low, they always were, so the man was only partially sedated. He was awake, aware. His name was Jin Ho, and he watched Bora work on him with curious eyes. "Will I keep it?" Jin Ho asked. Bora didn't look up. "No." "Okay. How long until I can get back to my unit?" 6 months, maybe less if you adapt well to the prosthetic. Jin Ho nodded like she'd told him the weather forecast. "Good, my squad needs me." Vekrin couldn't process it. This human was losing a leg and was already thinking about returning to combat. In Malthine society, such an injury meant retirement, compensation, a quiet life. This human saw it as a temporary setback. The operation took 2 hours. Jin Ho stayed conscious through most of it. When Bora finished, he looked down at the stump where his leg had been and said, "Well, at least I'll be lighter on the march." Hana gave him something for pain. Jin Ho took it but didn't take his eyes off his leg. "The new prosthetics are pretty good, right? I heard Park on B Squad runs faster now than he did before." "The military-grade ones are excellent," Hana said softly. "You'll be fine." After Jin Ho was stabilized and moved to recovery, Vekrin found himself alone with Bora. She was outside again, smoking, staring at nothing. "Your people don't feel pain the same way we do," Vekrin said. It wasn't a question. Bora laughed. It was a bitter sound. "Oh, we feel it. Every bit of it. We just don't have the luxury of stopping because it hurts. But your species could engineer that away. Gene therapy. Neural modifications. My people did it 3 centuries ago." "We could," Bora agreed. She took a long drag. "We don't because pain keeps us alive. It tells us when we're broken, and being able to push through it when we need to, that's made us what we are." She looked at him. "Your people modified themselves to feel less pain. Made yourselves more comfortable. That's fine, but comfort makes you weak. Pain tolerance makes you strong. No, choosing to endure makes us strong. There's a difference." She crushed out her cigarette. "I need to get back. 3 more surgeries scheduled." The alarm sounded 20 minutes later. Enemy artillery strike on the base perimeter. Vekrin felt that familiar freeze response as the building shook. He wanted to find shelter, to get underground, to wait until the danger passed. The wounded soldiers in the recovery ward didn't freeze. Jin Ho, who had lost his leg hours earlier, rolled off his bed and grabbed his rifle from beneath it. He hopped on one leg toward the door. Another soldier, missing an arm and covered in bandages, followed him. "What are you doing?" Vekrin shouted. "They're hitting the east wall," Jin Ho said. "We're short-handed there. You can't fight." "You're injured." Jin Ho looked at him like he'd said something stupid. "So, I still have 1 leg and 2 arms. That's enough to hold a rifle." Hana tried to stop them, but there were too many. Half the wounded in recovery grabbed weapons and headed for the walls. Bora didn't even try to stop them. She just made sure they had their pain medication and let them go. The artillery strike lasted 30 minutes. The humans fought back from their walls, wounded and healthy side by side. Vekrin huddled in the medical station and hated himself for it. His body wouldn't let him do what these humans did. His genes, his evolution, his very biology screamed at him to hide. When the attack ended, 4 more soldiers were dead. 9 more wounded. The injured from the recovery ward limped or were carried back to their beds. Jin Ho had torn open his surgical site and needed Bora to stitch him up again. He apologized for making extra work. That evening, Vekrin found himself in the command center with an intelligence officer named Subin. She was younger than Daejung, maybe 30, with cold eyes and quick hands that moved over data screens with practiced precision. "You're writing reports about us," Subin said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, the Concordat wants to understand human military effectiveness. And what have you learned so far?" Vekrin hesitated. "That you're either very brave or very insane," Subin smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Want to know the secret? We've been fighting each other for 10,000 years. Longer, maybe. Before we had cities, before we had language, we fought. Over territory, over food, over status. It's written into everything we are." She pulled up a holographic display. "Earth, the human homeworld. See this? We divided it into hundreds of nations, thousands, at different points. And we went to war with each other constantly. We created weapons specifically to kill other humans. We got very, very good at it." The display shifted. Images of human history, battlefields, weapons, millions dead. "We fought wars that killed more humans than some species have in total population. We survived a nuclear exchange that should have ended us. We kept fighting even when the planet was dying. Vecren felt sick. You're predators. We're survivors, Subin corrected. We learned that freezing gets you killed. Running gets you killed. The only way forward is through. So we evolved to run toward danger instead of away from it. We built cultures around it. Honor in battle, glory in sacrifice, songs about dying well. That's barbaric. That's why we're winning. Subin turned off the display. Every other species in this galaxy evolved to avoid conflict, to calculate cost, to preserve themselves. That's logical. That's smart. But the Krell don't care about logic. They want to consume everything. And the only way to fight an enemy like that is to be willing to pay any price to stop them. Even the price of your own people. Especially that price. Subin's eyes were hard. Because if we're not willing to die for something, then we've already lost. The Krell will eventually overwhelm any species that values survival over victory. But we don't value survival. We value winning, and we'll trade every last human life to do it if we have to. Vecren left the command center and walked through the base. Soldiers everywhere going about their duties. Hana was checking supplies. Taewan was cleaning his rifle. Daejung was reviewing tactical maps. Jinho was in physical therapy, learning to balance on one leg, already planning his return. They were broken people, scarred, traumatized. But they didn't stop. That night, Vecren updated his report. Report Day 14. Humans possess no genetic pain limiters. They feel every injury as intensely as an unmodified species would. They choose to endure it. Wounded soldiers return to combat positions despite injuries that would disable any concordate species. Their culture is built on conflict. They have been at war with themselves for their entire history. This has created a species that does not freeze in the face of death, but rather accelerates toward it. They calculate costs differently. A 15% casualty rate is not failure, it is acceptable. They will trade their bodies, their lives, their entire civilization if necessary to achieve victory. I begin to understand why the Krell have not overwhelmed them. The Krell are ruthless, but they value survival. Humans do not. Humans value winning. This makes them the most dangerous species I have ever encountered. The Concordate must understand. Humans are not like us. They cannot be judged by our standards. What we consider insane, they consider necessary. What we consider unacceptable losses, they consider the cost of business. If humanity ever turns these instincts toward the Concordate, we will not survive. The situation changed in the fourth week. Vecren was monitoring communications when the first reports came in. 3 human colonies had fallen in a coordinated Krell offensive. Thousands dead, millions more displaced. The Krell were pushing hard toward human core territories. The mood at Forward Operating Base Hammer shifted. The jokes became less frequent. The songs quieter. But the humans didn't talk about retreating. They talked about hitting back harder. Daejung called a briefing. His face was gray with fatigue, but his voice was steady. Fleet Command has new orders. We're pulling out of Threshold 7. The Krell can have the mining operations. We need to consolidate defensive positions at the core worlds, Vecren felt relief. Finally, these humans were being logical. They were retreating to defensible positions, cutting losses. Then Daejung continued. Before we leave, we're going to make them pay for every meter of ground. 3-day operation. We're going to hit every Krell position on this rock and burn anything we can't take with us. If they want Threshold 7, they can have the ashes. So not a retreat. A withdrawal while inflicting maximum damage. Vecren was beginning to understand the distinction humans made. He watched the engineers, led by a woman named Mi Young, work miracles with broken equipment. They had civilian mining machines, huge drills, and excavators, and in 36 hours they converted them into weapons. They mounted heavy guns on mining rigs. They rigged excavator arms to carry explosive charges. They turned ore processors into improvised artillery. This is insane, Vecren said, watching a mining drill get fitted with armor plating. Mi Young grinned at him. She had grease on her face and had been working for 20 hours straight. Yeah, probably. But it'll work. Humans are really good at taking things that aren't meant to kill and making them kill anyway. It's basically our specialty. Where did you learn to do this? Engineering school, Mi Young said. Plus I grew up on a farming colony. You learn to fix anything with whatever you have on hand. Turns out those skills are really useful in war. The offensive began at dawn. Daejung's forces hit 6 Krell positions simultaneously. The mining equipment worked better than it had any right to. A drilling rig broke through fortified walls like they were paper. Excavators scooped up Krell soldiers and crushed them. The improvised artillery pounded enemy positions, but the cost was high. Very high. Vecren watched from a command vehicle as casualty reports came in. 20% losses in the first hour, 30% after 2 hours. Any concordant force would have pulled back. These were unsustainable numbers. The humans kept attacking. A scout named Hyun-woo had been operating behind enemy lines for a week. He sent targeting data for artillery strikes, marked supply routes, identified command positions. Vecren reviewed his mission parameters. Hyun-woo was supposed to be extracted after 3 days. Why hasn't he been pulled out? Vecren asked Subin. He doesn't want to be. Says he can do more good where he is. Subin pulled up Hyun-woo's last message. He's down to emergency rations and ammunition, but he's got eyes on a Krell staging area. The intel is too valuable. He'll die out there. Probably, Subin agreed, but the information he's providing is saving hundreds of lives. That's the trade he chose to make. Vecren tried to comprehend it. A soldier choosing to stay in enemy territory, alone, without supply, knowing death was certain. And command letting him do it because the tactical advantage was worth the loss of 1 life. The numbers were logical. 1 life for hundreds, but the calculation itself was monstrous. On the second day of the offensive, Daejung's unit got cut off. A Krell counterattack had collapsed the line behind them. They were surrounded, outnumbered 5-1 with no clear extraction route. Fleet Command sent orders. Hold position for 72 hours. Reinforcements would break through 72 hours. Vecren ran the calculations. With their ammunition, their supplies, their tactical position, it was impossible. They might last 24 hours. 48 if they were lucky. 72 was fantasy. Daejung read the orders to his troops. Command says 3 days. I say we give them 4 just to show off. The humans laughed. They were going to die and they laughed about it. Vecren watched them prepare. They had maybe 300 soldiers, cut off from supply, surrounded by over 1,500 Krell. Taewon, who had been so nervous on his first drop, was now calm and professional. He helped others set up defensive positions. Hana organized the medical supplies, rationing them out. Jinho, still learning to walk on his prosthetic leg, checked ammunition counts. You should save a round, someone said. For yourself. If they overrun us. Hell with that, Jinho replied. Every bullet I have is for them. They want me. They can come take me. The siege began that evening. Vecren had never experienced anything like it. The Krell attacked in waves, constant pressure trying to grind the humans down through attrition. It should have worked. By every military doctrine Vecren knew, it should have worked. But the humans didn't break. They fought with everything. When ammunition ran low, they fixed bayonets. When the bayonets broke, they used knives. When the knives dulled, they used rocks and fists. They gave ground only when holding it cost more than it was worth, and they took it back as soon as they could. Vecren watched Taewon hold a corridor by himself for 6 hours. The young soldier had run out of ammunition and was using a Krell weapon he'd picked up from a corpse. When that ran dry, he used the weapon as a club. When it broke, he found another. Hana ran between positions under fire, treating wounded, redistributing ammunition from the dead to the living. She took a round through her shoulder and kept going. Someone tried to stop her to treat it. She shoved them away. I can work with 1 arm. They need this more than I do. On the 3rd day, Daejung got on the command channel. His voice was hoarse. Fleet Command, this is Hammer Base Actual. We're still here. We're still fighting. Come get us when you can. We'll hold. They held for 96 hours. 4 days. Vecren didn't understand how. He had watched their supplies dwindle to nothing. He had seen their casualties mount. By the end, they had less than 40 combat-effective soldiers left. They were using Krell weapons, Krell supplies, eating Krell rations. They were fighting from the enemy's corpses, using the dead as barricades. When the relief force finally broke through, Vecren went with them. The scene was like something from hell. Bodies everywhere, Krell and human mixed together. The surviving humans were covered in blood, their own and others. They looked like ghosts. Daejung was still alive, still commanding. He had taken a round through the leg and 1 through the side. He was leaning on Taewon for support, directing the evacuation. Took you long enough, Daejung said to the relief commander. You were supposed to hold for 72 hours. Yeah, well, we're overachievers. The evac was chaos. Krell forces were regrouping for another push. Yuri brought in her dropship first, taking the most critically wounded. The ship was already damaged from a previous run. Alarms blared. Hull breaches. Engine problems. This bucket won't make another trip, Yuri said over the comms. Then get it out of here now, Daejung ordered. Not without you. Boss, and that's an order, pilot? Yuri cut the connection. 60 seconds later, she was landing in the middle of the combat zone, ignoring every safety protocol, ignoring direct orders. She dropped the ramp. Get in, you stubborn bastard, before I have to shoot you myself. Daejung limped up the ramp, supported by Taewon and another soldier. Hana was right behind them. Vekrin ran after, his Malthine survival instincts overridden by pure adrenaline and the strange human disease of stubbornness he seemed to have caught. The dropship made it back to orbit with one engine on fire and half its systems dead. Yuri set them down on a fleet carrier hard enough to crack the landing struts. Later, much later, Vekrin found Daejung in the medical bay. The commander was sedated finally, forced into it by Bora, who had threatened to tie him down. Why? Vekrin asked the sleeping human. Why push so hard? Why sacrifice so much? But he knew the answer. He had seen it in their eyes, heard it in their voices, felt it in their actions. These humans didn't fight because they had to. They fought because they chose to. And once they made that choice, nothing, not logic, not odds, not death itself, would make them stop. Vekrin returned to his quarters and wrote his report with shaking hands. Report. Day 28. Human forces sustained 70% casualties but completed their objectives. They held an impossible position for 4 days, 33% longer than ordered. This is not unusual for them. This is expected. I witnessed a human soldier choose to stay behind enemy lines with no extraction plan. I watched wounded humans fight from positions that should have killed them. I saw a pilot disobey direct orders to save her commander, knowing it would likely get her killed. These humans do not calculate survival. They calculate impact. How much damage can I do before I fall? How many can I save before I die? How long can I hold before they break through? The answer is always more than expected. More than possible. More than any other species could endure. The Concordat believes humans are our allies. I am beginning to understand we are simply fortunate they are not our enemies. The fleet regrouped at Station Meridian, a massive orbital platform that served as the fallback point. Vekrin watched ships arrive, damaged, limping, some held together by emergency repairs and prayers. The human fleet was down to 40% of its original strength. Most Concordat admirals would be preparing surrender terms. Admiral Young-Soo was preparing for the next offensive. Vekrin attended the War Council. Representatives from 6 allied species filled the chamber. The humans were in the minority. The mood was grim. The Malthine representative, Vekrin's own commander Thelon, spoke first. We must face reality. The Krell have taken 11 systems. Our forces are depleted. We should negotiate terms while we still have leverage. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The other species were nodding. They had fought well, but they understood when to stop. Young-Soo stood. The admiral was older than Daejung, maybe 60 human years. Gray hair, steady hands, eyes that had seen too much. We will not negotiate. Be reasonable, Thelon said. We have lost battles, not the war. Young-Soo's voice was quiet, but it filled the room. The Krell do not negotiate. They consume. Every species that has tried to make peace with them is extinct. We know this. You know this. Then what do you propose? We continue until we're all dead? If necessary. Young-Soo pulled up a star chart. But I don't think it will come to that. The Krell are overextended. They've pushed hard, but their supply lines are stretched thin. We hit those lines, collapse their logistics and their advance stops. With what forces? Another representative asked. We're at 40% strength. We use what we have. We ask for volunteers from the civilian fleet. Young-Soo looked at each representative. I understand if your people choose to withdraw. This is primarily a human fight now, but we will not surrender. We will not negotiate. We will fight until we win, or until there are no more humans left to fight. The council erupted in argument. Vekrin listened to representatives debate the logic of continued resistance. The math was clear. Continuing the fight would result in massive casualties, possibly extinction for multiple species. The reasonable choice was to negotiate, to accept some territorial losses to survive. Thelm turned to Vecren. Observer, you have been with the humans for over a month. You have seen how they fight. Make them understand reason. Vecren looked at Young-Su. The Admiral met his eyes and Vecren saw something there that made his blood cold. Determination. Absolute, unshakable determination. Young-Su would fight until death took him, and every human in the fleet would do the same. I cannot make them understand reason, Vecren said quietly, because they are not reasoning. They are choosing, and they have chosen to fight. The council ended with 4 allied species agreeing to withdraw their forces. They would defend their home systems but would no longer participate in offensive operations. That left the humans alone. Young-Su didn't seem surprised. We knew this was coming. We've always known we'd have to finish this ourselves. Vecren spent the next days watching the human fleet prepare. They were calling for volunteers from civilian ships. The response was overwhelming. A freighter captain named Sang-Hoon showed up with 50 merchant vessels. We're not warships, he told Young-Su, but we can ram. We can block. We can transport. Use us. You'll likely die, Young-Su said, then we die. Sang-Hoon smiled. My grandfather died fighting for Earth. My father died defending the colonies. It's my turn. I'm not going to be the first one in my family to run. Vecren watched this and understood something terrible. Humans didn't just fight as soldiers. They fought as a species. Every one of them was ready to die. Old ones, young ones, soldiers, and civilians. They had turned their entire civilization into a weapon. Reports came in from occupied worlds. A xenobiologist named Yoon-Ji was organizing resistance on Threshold 7. She was using scientific equipment to make explosives. Her resistance cells were farmers, teachers, children. They were hitting Krell supply depots with kitchen knives and homemade bombs. One message from Yoon-Ji said, "We are not soldiers. We do not know tactics, but we know how to break things. Send us nothing. We will take what we need from them." Vecren accessed footage from Threshold 7. He saw humans fighting Krell soldiers with farming tools, saw teenagers laying traps using chemistry they'd learned in school, saw old men and women setting ambushes knowing they wouldn't survive the day. The Krell responded with brutality. They executed prisoners. They burned villages. They tried to break human morale through terror. It had the opposite effect. More humans joined the resistance. The violence escalated. Vecren watched footage of a Krell commander begging for reinforcements. They don't stop, the translation read. We kill 10 and 20 more appear. They are everywhere. They fight with anything. Children are throwing rocks. Elders are sabotaging equipment. We cannot hold this planet. Vecren found himself in the observation deck with Dae-Jung. The commander had been released from medical bay against Bora's advice. He walked with a limp and his side was still bandaged, but he was back on duty. You should be resting, Vecren said. I'll rest when this is over. Dae-Jung looked out at the fleet. Ships moving, preparing, loading supplies. You think we're crazy? Your report says so. Vecren hesitated. I think you're incomprehensible. My people would never do what yours do. I know. That's why we're going to win and you'd have lost. Dae-Jung's voice wasn't cruel, just matter of fact. Your people are smart, logical. You calculate odds and make reasonable choices. That's good for peace. It's terrible for war. War should be logical. War is never logical. War is emotional. It's about will. The side that wants it more, that's willing to pay more, that refuses to stop. That side wins. Not the smart side. Not the strong side. The stubborn side. A teenage girl appeared on a screen nearby. Her name was Minseo. She had survived the fall of her colony by hiding in a supply closet for 3 days. Now she was giving testimony at a war crimes tribunal. They came at night, Minseo said, her voice empty. They killed everyone in the square. My parents. My teachers. My friends. They made us watch. They wanted us to be afraid. To break, the interviewer asked gently, what did you do? I stopped being afraid. I got angry. Minseo looked directly at the camera. I want every human to see this. To know what they did. Because we need to remember. We need to stay angry. We need to make them pay. Dae-Jung turned off the screen. She's 16. She should be in school, thinking about boys and grades and what she wants to do with her life. Instead, she's watching her family get murdered and turning that grief into fuel. That's horrible. Yes. But it's also why we'll win. Because every human who sees that testimony will feel what she felt. Will remember. And we'll fight harder. Vekrin understood then. Human strength wasn't physical. It wasn't technological. It was psychological. They could take the worst trauma, the deepest grief, and convert it into motivation. They didn't break under pressure. They crystallized. Your people have a contingency plan, don't they? Vekrin asked. If you lose Earth, if the Krell win. Daejung nodded. Colony ships, sent beyond known space. No navigation data, no way to trace them. If the Krell wipe us out, those ships will survive. They'll grow. And in 100 years or 1,000, they'll come back. That's monstrous. You're seeding the galaxy with revenge. We're ensuring survival. Daejung met his eyes. You can kill us, all of us, every human alive right now. But you cannot make us surrender. You cannot make us forget. And the ones you miss will remember. They'll grow strong. And they'll come for you. Vekrin felt something he'd never felt before. True fear of another species. Not fear of their weapons or their numbers. Fear of their will. Because you could destroy human bodies, but you couldn't destroy the human drive to continue, to survive, to avenge. That night, Vekrin watched Taewon in the training bay. The young soldier was practicing with his rifle, running drills over and over. He had dark circles under his eyes. His hand shook slightly. Are you well? Vekrin asked. Taewon stopped. Put down the rifle. No, I'm not well. I have nightmares every night. I see my friends die over and over. I wake up screaming. He picked up the rifle again. But I'm here. I'm training. Because being not well doesn't matter. What matters is being ready for the next fight. You're broken. Yeah. Taewon smiled, and it was a terrible smile. We're all broken. Every human who's seen combat is broken in some way. But broken doesn't mean useless. Broken things can still cut. Can still hurt. Can still kill. Vekrin returned to his quarters and wrote his longest report yet. Report Day 42. I have witnessed humanity's breaking point. I have seen human soldiers with severe psychological trauma continue to fight. I have seen civilians choose death over survival. I have seen children turn their grief into weapons. The allied species are withdrawing. They believe the war is lost. They are wrong. The war cannot be lost because humans will not allow it to be lost. They will fight with fleets, with ships, with guns, with knives, with rocks, with their bare hands. And if you kill all of them, they have seeded colony ships beyond known space to ensure someone survives to continue the fight. I finally understand why they are winning this war. Not because they are strong, not because they are smart, but because they have fundamentally refused to accept the possibility of defeat. The Krell Armada arrived at the Neptune line 6 weeks later. It was the largest fleet movement anyone had ever seen. Thousands of ships, millions of soldiers heading directly for Earth, the human homeworld. If Earth fell, humanity would be broken. That was the Krell calculation. They didn't understand humans at all. Every human ship capable of flight converged on Sol system. Military vessels, civilian freighters, corporate transports, personal craft. Vekrin watched the fleet assemble from Young-Su's flagship and felt his breath catch. There were ships held together with welded patches. Ships that should have been scrapped years ago. Ships that were technically civilian but had been fitted with weapons in the last week. The allied species sent observers but no ships. They wanted to witness humanity's last stand, to document it for history. Thelen contacted Vekrin privately. You should evacuate. There's no shame in it. This is their fight. No, Vekrin said. He surprised himself with the certainty in his voice. I need to see this. I need to know how it ends. It will end with them destroyed. Perhaps, but I need to witness it. The human fleet numbered just over 4,000 ships. The Krell had 12,000. The math was brutally simple. The humans were outnumbered 3-1. Their ships were damaged, their crews exhausted, their supplies limited. Young-Su gathered the fleet commanders for a final briefing. Daejung was there, commanding a cruiser now. Sang-hoon represented the civilian volunteers. Yuri commanded a squadron of dropships that had been retrofitted for space combat. Bo-Ra ran the medical frigate. Hana coordinated medic teams across the fleet. They outnumber us, Young-Su said simply. They're stronger. Better equipped. By every measure, we should lose this battle. He paused. Let the silence stretch. But we're not going to lose, because they don't understand us. They think taking Earth will break us. They think we'll surrender if they destroy our homeworld. Young-Su smiled. They're wrong. If they take Earth, we'll take it back. If they kill every human here, the colony ships will continue. We are not one planet. We are not one fleet. We are an idea. And you cannot kill an idea. He pulled up the tactical display. We're going to hit them here at the Neptune line. We're going to make them pay for every meter of space. And we're going to show them something they've never seen before, a species that refuses to die. The battle plan was insane. Vekrin had studied warfare for decades. This plan violated every principle of sound tactics. It relied on individual initiative, overwhelming aggression, and accepting catastrophic losses in exchange for inflicting slightly worse losses on the enemy. It was perfectly human. The Krell fleet arrived in formation, precise, orderly, professional. They advanced with the confidence of a force that knew it had already won. The human fleet charged no coordinated approach, no careful positioning. They just accelerated to maximum speed and threw themselves at the Krell like a wave of metal and fire. Vekrin watched from Young-Su's command center. The fleet coordination channels were chaos. Hundreds of voices shouting, singing, calling targets. No careful military discipline, just raw, focused aggression. Sang-Hoon's freighter rammed a Krell cruiser. The explosion took out both ships and damaged 3 more nearby. Sang-Hoon is down, someone reported. Good trade, another voice said. That's 4 for 1. They were calculating exchanges like commodity traders. Lives for lives. Ships for ships. As long as the Krell lost more, it was acceptable. Yuri's squadron dove into a Krell carrier bay. Half her ships were destroyed in the approach. The survivors released their payloads inside the carrier. The ship broke apart from internal explosions. Yuri, you're trapped in there. Daejung's voice crackled over comms. Yeah, I know. Tell my mom I love her. Also that she was wrong. I definitely did not waste my time in flight school. Her ship's transponder went dead 30 seconds later. The battle expanded into a massive brawl. No clean lines. No organized formations. Just thousands of ships trying to kill each other in close quarters. The Krell tried to maintain discipline. To fight properly, the humans refused to let them. Mi-Young's engineering teams were performing miracles. They hot-wired captured Krell weapon systems in real time. They rerouted power from life support to weapons. They turned damaged human ships into bombs and guided them into enemy formations. Engineering requests permission to overload Reactor 7, someone reported to Young-Su. Approved. Make sure the crew evacuates first. Crew refuses to evacuate. Says they can aim better from inside. Young-Su closed his eyes briefly. Tell them. Tell them humanity is grateful. Approved. Reactor 7 went critical 10 minutes later. It took out a Krell battleship and its 3 escort cruisers. Vekrin watched the casualty counters climb. The human fleet was down 30%, 40%, 50%. Every tactical doctrine he knew said they should retreat, regroup, survive to fight another day. The humans kept fighting. He saw Tae-Wan leading a boarding action on a Krell dreadnought. Saw Jin-Ho fighting in zero gravity with his prosthetic leg sparking from damage. Saw Hana running triage on a ship with no gravity, no power, floating bodies and supplies everywhere, still trying to save everyone she could. The Krell numbers were dropping too. They were built for systematic conquest, for overwhelming weaker species. They weren't built for this, for enemies that fought like rabid animals, that traded lives without hesitation, that turned every ship into a potential bomb. This is insane, a Krell commander broadcasted on an open channel. Stop fighting! You're killing yourselves, Daejung responded. That's the difference between us. You fight to survive. We fight to win, even if it kills us. Hours into the battle, Hyunwoo appeared on sensors. The scout had survived behind enemy lines and had somehow made it to Sol system in a stolen Krell shuttle. He was sending targeting data for the Krell flagship. I can't get close enough, Hyunwoo reported. Their shields are too strong. Then don't get close, Young-Su said. Just give us the weak points. I can do better. I can detonate this shuttle's reactor right at their shield generator. Make a hole for you. There was a pause on the command channel. Hyunwoo, that's a suicide run. Young-Su said quietly. I know. Permission to proceed? Vekrin wanted to scream. To stop this. This human was choosing to die. Choosing it calmly, rationally, as if it were just another tactical decision. Permission granted, Young-Su said. Thank you for your service. It was an honor, sir. Give them hell. Hyunwoo's shuttle accelerated toward the Krell flagship. Point Defense tried to stop him, failed. The shuttle hit the shield generator and exploded. The shields flickered, dropped. 20 human ships poured fire into the opening. The Krell flagship broke apart. The battle turned. The Krell had lost their command ship. Their coordination started to fail. The human fleet, already chaos, sensed weakness and pushed harder. "They're breaking," someone shouted. The Krell fleet began to retreat. Not a coordinated withdrawal, a rout. They were fleeing. Young-Su immediately sent orders. "All ships pursue. Don't let them regroup." "Sir, we're at 60% losses," an aide said. "We should hold position, recover." "No, we chase them. We break them completely. This ends now." The surviving human ships pursued. They were damaged, running on fumes, crews exhausted beyond measure. They didn't care. They chased the Krell fleet for 6 hours, harrying them, destroying stragglers, ensuring they never stopped running. When the Krell finally jumped to faster-than-light speeds and scattered, the human fleet was down to less than 2,000 operational ships, out of the original 4,000. It was the most costly victory in human history. It was also complete. Vecren stood in Young-Su's command center and watched humans celebrate. They had lost over half their fleet. Thousands dead. Maybe tens of thousands. Their homeworld had come within hours of invasion. They were singing victory songs. Daejung's face appeared on screen. He was covered in blood, his own and others. His ship had taken catastrophic damage, but he was grinning. "We did it. We actually did it. Get to medical," Young-Su ordered after the party. "My crew earned this." On Taewon's ship, the young soldier who had been so nervous on his first drop was helping wounded crewmates. He looked older now, harder, but still alive. Still fighting. Bora's medical frigate was overwhelmed with casualties. She worked without stopping, smoking between surgeries, saving everyone she could. Hana had been injured, shrapnel through her leg. She was performing surgery on someone else while medics worked on her. "Treat them first," she kept saying. "I can wait." Mi Young's engineers were already cataloging the battlefield, planning recovery operations, marking Krell technology to salvage. "We can use their weapons," Mi Young said. "Integrate them into our ships. Next time we'll be ready faster, next time." They were already planning the counteroffensive. Vecren accessed the casualty reports. He had known many of these humans. One chick who had joked about scars. Jinho had survived but lost his other leg. He was already requesting advanced combat prosthetics. Yuri was dead. Sang-hoon was dead. Hyunwoo was dead. Hundreds more. Thousands more. And the humans were celebrating them, telling their stories, making sure they were remembered. Theln contacted him. "Observer Vecren, your presence is requested at the Concordat Emergency Council." Vecren took a shuttle to the Concordat vessel. The council chamber was filled with representatives who had witnessed the battle.